Alright, what is up guys? Losomaniac here. Today I want to talk about um, my review of The Last of Us. I understand that I kind of reviewed the second one when I should have reviewed the first one first, because that would have made sense. But, um, I don't know, I kind of really forgot what happened during the game of the first one. So, but to be honest, I didn't think I'd be getting the game, so that's why I didn't review the first one. But I do want to clarify one thing. I did plan on making this video tomorrow, but I did want to kind of talk about more of the second one, but mostly the first one, because as it's kind of fresh in my head, and I'm starting to play the second one again, because now that I played the first one, I'm going back and play the second one, see if there's anything that made a bit more sense, and overall, whatever. But I do want to say I've been watching a lot of game theory. So if for some reason I start talking like MatPat whenever he makes theories, I'm so sorry. I'm like a sponge and I absorb everything. Um, and I do want to clarify one thing. I do have a bit of a problem in a sense that if I grow attached to something, and if someone doesn't like it, I take it personally, even though I don't give a shit about people's opinions. It just gets in my way. It kind of bothers me. So I do know there are videos out there by a wonderful commenter who posted a comment on my video. I would have written it down, but this is like a last minute thing to mention. So you know who you are. You're an awesome man or person. Anyways, shit. Um, but the thing is it's it's kind of one thing that kind of bothers me because I had to get rid of iFunny. iFunny of all things, because they shit on the game so many times. Like every meme upload, like every like pack of memes, at least three of them are like anti Last of Us 2. And it bothers me because I love the game, and I want to try and understand why people dislike it. A lot of people say, because whenever I first heard it, it was something like LGBTQ plus stuff, and so I was like, oh well, there was that makeout scene between Ellie and Dina. Oh, spoiler alert! Even though that's not really a spoiler, it's just something that happened. So I will say in advance, spoiler alert. I should have said that before, but I didn't plan on talking about The Last of Us 2 gameplay shit. So yeah, right here, spoiler alert. So I did think that the whole like shit with like The Last of Us 2 LGBTQ plus hate was because of the fact that like Ellie is openly gay, and along with Dina. I thought that was it, but I thought it was kind of weird because they aren't really that as romantic as a lot of people say. Yeah, they do romantically hold each other or hold hands or whatever. They do kiss every now and then, which is a word I fucking hate. Uh, but there wasn't really that much to it, and then so a lot of people were saying that's because of like the some of them was like there's persons transgender out there, but that doesn't really make sense because the only person I thought was transgender was Lev. Um, but then they sort of talked about but then they said her, but then said him. So I was like, okay, maybe Lev was a transgender female, but that didn't make sense because in one of Abby's backstories in the epilogue, Lev is clearly a boy. So it's so confusing, and I want to learn, but a lot of it's just gonna be like why I hate Last of Us 2, and for this reason, and it'll just bother me. I won't be able to finish it, um, which isn't really necessarily like a big deal because it's something I am passionate about. But the thing is kind of like going back to iFunny. I had to uninstall it because if you guys remember from my Last of Us 2 review, I know I'm like talking about it even though I haven't gone to the review. It's kind of like a before I start, here's more like a Last of Us 2 update because I didn't want to like make a separate video talking about the second one, like on its own, because it would just be like 3 minutes of me talking. I'd be like, I don't know. It's to me it's totally fine. I'm doing this, but what was I getting at? Oh yeah, so I had to uninstall iFunny because if you guys remember from my part 2 review, I said on how I didn't want anyone berating me because of my opinion, and the reason that is because I've unlike YouTube, like I barely see people who say like my opinion is right and here's why you're wrong. But on iFunny, it's just everywhere. Every time, and I could stay away from the comments, but something just, but if there's already like a meme about hating The Last of Us, then I can't avoid it anyway. So I might as well go to the comments. And like I haven't seen a single one who said it's actually a good game. I actually really enjoy it. No one, I've never seen anyone see that. Now, granted, I haven't gone far in the comments because all of them just talks about how shit the game is. And so that kind of proved my point of, well, YouTube is more I respect your opinion, but there are the reason why people don't like it is because of this. iFunny, it's just a case of like, if you don't agree with my opinion, then fuck you. And that's all it is. So I had to uninstall it. I don't know. I might wait for it to like, once this whole like Last of Us thing dies down, if it ever does, because people hone in on shit like that. People still upset about Harambe to this day. People are like, yeah, it was just like a weird time, but some of us are like, he did not deserve any of that to this day. Like, it's just weird. But so I did want to clarify. I am a bit sensitive on this topic because of the fact that I use a lot of iFunny, which. And to be honest, iFunny takes like the memes like way too seriously, so that was another reason why, because they always post like porn on there, which I do understand where they're coming from, but they always complain about it. Like, if you're not laughing, you shouldn't have to complain about it because it's still funny to some people. Like, there are memes I laugh at that a lot of people don't. It's like, well, it's funny to some people. You don't have to be right every fucking time. So yeah, this went from like a talk of The Last of Us 2 to an iFunny rant, but that in a way kind of talks about it follows Last of Us 2 in some way, but I kind of went overboard with it. So yeah, on to my Last of Us review. The main reason I have this in the title. I do want to say again, kind of like with Last of Us 2, spoiler alert, but mostly to The Last of Us 2. The reason I say spoiler alert to The Last of Us 2 is because The Last of Us has been out for over 2. I know it's been out for a while. It's been long enough, in fact, that Jacksepticeye was living in the cabin in the woods in Ireland. I think I haven't watched the series, but I haven't watched his series. But I know he was living there at the time, so it may not have been that old or whatever. Probably has, but that's not important. So I believe that after 2 years, if something has come out after 2 years, then there's no need for spoilers or like giving spoiler alerts. And the reason is because it's 2 years. If that's something you were interested in, then you would have watched it to begin with. So if some of you guys are getting pissed off at me over spoiling the first one, first of all, I don't care. Alright, it's been out for so long that if you genuinely cared about spoilers, then you would have seen those gameplays anyways. And besides, I'm like so late to this train. I'm pretty sure I'm the only person who's reviewing this now. I haven't seen any because, and I would Google Last of Us reviews, but it's always going to be the second one. It's always going to be negative and why I hate it. The title is like why I hate The Last of Us 2. So I'm trying to. So I may be the last person to review The Last of Us, but I don't care. I'm pretty sure I was the last person to review Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 4. Those will have significance to my review of The Last of Us, and I'll explain why later. So on to the review. I liked it. It was pretty good. I will say one thing. Whenever I'm reviewing this after the second time me playing it, because so my opinions may be different from the first time I played it. Like after I played the first one, I may have had a different review or different feelings about it as opposed to this one. But since I played The Last of Us 2, I'm completely unfazed by what happens in the first one. Uh, so I will say one thing. After playing the second one, I went back and played the first one, and I have much more respect to Ellie now as I did back then. Because, well, granted, Last of Us 2 wasn't thinking about coming out whenever I played it, but then afterwards, people were like, yeah, they're making a second one now. Like, it was just announced. Like, I think a few months after or like maybe a month or two, or maybe a few weeks after I beaten it, which took me a while because I got the PlayStation on Christmas, Christmas Day, and I recently finished it, or last year Christmas, and I recently finished it this year. So I want to say between January or February because although I think about it, I think it was whenever it was announced that the second one was coming out. I finished the first one. I don't know. My memory is about as bad as a goldfish. Although people say they're good. Anyways, going off track, adding my little Trevor side notes, which is where I add unnecessary shit that isn't related to the topic, or just add more information to a topic. So you'll be hearing that a lot on probably this review. I will say one thing though before I go any further. This game does add the like apocalyptic cliche in there. I don't know if you guys know about it, or you guys probably do. But in a lot of these like survival games where it's like a apocalypse or a Fallout or whatever, where you have to survive, being zombie apocalypse or something happen, or what would consider an apocalypse, there's always a group of cannibals. I don't know why. I don't know about, but let me explain how I figure this out. And maybe I'm just overlooking, and maybe those are just big, or maybe those were just referenced or kind of gives ties to the game or whether it's movies, TV shows, or games. There's always something like that. I always say that. But in Fallout 3, you have Andale, which was revealed to be a group of cannibals if you do the quest and check the basements of one of the houses where you're told not to go. Don't know how I know that. Never done the quest. I do not like Fallout 3 at all. But and then the second one, or in New Vegas, you have the White Glove Society, which you learn about by either entering the White Glove Society, or I guess, yeah, or the Ultralux. Yeah, because the White Glove Society runs the Ultralux. So you either enter there and start the quest, not Mystery Meat, that's Fallout 4. Whatever it is. I haven't played the game in so long. I've been playing Fallout 4 a lot, so or you do Caesar's Legion quests. By starting with Caesar's Legion, Caesar tells you that they were a group of cannibals at one point, and a few of them want to bring back the tradition of being cannibals. And then you have Fallout 4 with Longneck Lukowskis, although that's more in the form of ghouls. I don't know if that counts as cannibalism, but to me it does, because ghouls were at one point human. They're just feral at that point. So I will say that and besides, the cannibalism perk in Fallout 4 does work with humans, ghouls, and super mutants. So it's safe to say that eating ghouls is considered cannibalism. And then you have David and them in The Last of Us 1, the first one, where after you leave the University of Colorado, which I think was University of Western Colorado, I don't know. I do live in Colorado, so I know the university they're talking about and the team, but I'm more familiar with the UCCS Buffaloes. But I know it's like Bighorns or something. I don't know. Again, memory of a goldfish. But then afterwards, whenever Joel gets hurt, I know I'm jumping all over the place, but I mean, I kind of want to put this out there. You're put in like a lodge area, still in Colorado, which is not surprising considering the fact on how fucking snowy it is there. But it doesn't get as snowy here as a lot of people may think. But again, little Trevor side notes. So, and then, so after Joel gets hurt, there's a group of Ellie goes hunting for food for her and looks for medicine for Joel. And while Ellie's hunting a deer, the deer runs off after Ellie almost kills it, and then David and his group shows up, and after trying to survive with David reveals that like his group was there attacking the university, or basically going through the university that Joel and Ellie were at because they needed it for Ellie. And it's revealed that they were cannibals, which now that I've played these games, whenever I play more of these like apocalyptic games, I'm basically expecting it at this point. But the only game that doesn't have cannibals, at least to my knowledge, would be the second one. Because, well, okay, to be fair though, it is in a series. So I guess there are cannibals in the second one, even though they don't appear in that one. Because, I mean, no, David's dead. That whole group is dead. Never mind. But I get in a way there are cannibals out there. Well, there's cannibals out here as well. But in the Last of Us franchise, there are cannibals that are still out there. So I guess in a way there aren't cannibals in the second one, but there is in a way. That makes sense. Anyway, over speculating doesn't matter. Moving on. So yeah, that was the whole reason why I wanted to like make this video today, was because I wanted to touch on the point of there are cannibals in a lot of these apocalyptic movies, TV shows, and video games. I remember watching a TV show. I forgot what TV show it was. It was so long ago. I want to say it was so long ago, but it was before I moved into this apartment. But there were cannibals in that show. So yeah, that's what kind of fueled the whole like there are cannibals in apocalyptic movies, or in apocalyptic relations to TV shows, movies, video games. And then after I played Fallout, after I learned about Andale in Fallout 3, and Lognek Lukowski's in Fallout 4, and David and his group in The Last of Us, I was like, there's a lot of cannibals in these movies. Now, maybe there aren't any in The Walking Dead. I haven't watched this show. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. Whatever. If there is, then that just further proves my point. And if there isn't, then maybe it's specific to like add more plot twists or whatnot. Even though the Ultralux isn't really that much of a plot twist. Anyway, a little more of my side notes. But after, like I said, after finishing Last of Us 2, I did have a bit more appreciation towards Ellie now that I know what happens. But this did answer a very unnecessary question I had, which was how old was Ellie, which she was like 19. Because you see them like smoking weed and do all this stuff that, well, at least now, isn't legal. But I guess it's the apocalypse. Who's gonna fucking stop you, right? But the fact that they would show, not necessarily show Dina and Ellie making out or whatnot, but just the fact that they would show that in the second one, kind of weirded me out a bit in a sense, because you wouldn't usually see that in like movies or other video games where they're not of age. So I thought it was really weird because it said like 4 years later, so that means it took place 4 years after the first one, so I thought maybe she was like 18, but she is 19, which kind of confused me a bit while playing the first one, because I was like, well, okay, how does 14 plus 4 equal 19? But then I remember after, in one of the flashbacks in the second one, you go through Ellie's birthday, which means she's a year or two older, depending on how. I think it was like 2 years back, so that means she's 16. But that doesn't make. My math is fucking me up here. If it was. Never mind. All we know is that she's 19. Which, again, makes no sense why I wanted that question, but I just wanted that question. But well, I will say one thing. Well, I do understand why they have Abby in there. I do think it was useless, because especially after learning of the first one, of learning of the plot twist in the first one, and kind of playing it again, it doesn't make sense. Because, and it kind of ruined it for me, because in a way, as I replayed it, I was like, yeah, it's what you fucking get. Or I was essentially like, no, Joel, don't do this. This is gonna happen. He's gonna fuck over Ellie in the second one. But I will say, if the sole purpose of I feel like the sole purpose of The Last of Us 2 should have been to just Ellie learn of the truth of what Joel did at that St. Mary's hospital. But that would be like such a short game, and you're basically replaying. It'd be almost like you're replaying the first one, just moving away from Jackson and playing as Ellie, because she does go alone at that one. But that would be so short. It'd be shorter than like the first game, because you would be adding more unnecessary shit to it than the second one. But I'm not one to judge. I'm not Naughty Dog. I'm not anyone. I'm just me. But I don't know, something like that does seem a bit weird, and I wanted that one specifically to. I have no idea what I'm saying. I'm so all over the place with this, but what do you expect from someone like me? Anyway, this went from like a Last of Us 1 review to like a comparison between the two. But while playing the first one, speaking of comparisons, I had this like dumb question that only Game Theory would have and no one else, which is, who is the better hunter, Joel or Ellie? I thought about making that video, but first of all, no one's gonna care because it's a fucking game. And that has like no significance to the games whatsoever. It's just like a little like, hey, by the way, Joel would be a better hunter. And second of all, even if someone did want me to make, even if I decided like, hey, maybe there's someone out there who would care, I would need to play the game over and over to find like those secret training manuals and all of that. But judging by what the training manuals do, I will say I think Ellie would win. But that's neither here nor there. I have no proof of that, and it's just a theory, a game theory. Again, watching a lot of game theory. Don't judge me. But okay, so let me take a step back. I find it a bit jarring on how, like, immediately after the death of Sarah, we don't really know much about Tess. We just somehow know that Joel and Tess were in some sort of like dating relationship in some way, or I would say a personal relationship, because that's more like it. But in the first one, it's not really speculated either. We just assume that's what happens, and yet we're right. Maybe, and that kind of ties back to the whole thing of how after Tess dies and we learn that she's been bitten, Ellie brings up like, hey, I'm sorry about what happened with Tess, and then Joel's like, listen, we don't talk about Tess anymore. And I thought it was weird, because I thought maybe like Joel had a sister as well, or like Joel and Tommy had a sister, but that would have seemed a bit weird and we would have heard about it to begin with. But then I had to learn through like the Last of Us wiki because I didn't know it was obvious that they were dating, but because I don't get um um romantic signs, I guess. Um, but it was it was clear as day now that I learned that Tess and Joel were like a couple. But it still bothered me the first time I played it because again it may have been speculated, but there's like no way of there was really no way of knowing naturally unless you like check the wiki of it. Did I say Fallout wiki? I don't know. Doesn't matter. But and then like Marlene shows up at like the at like the at the beginning and it says, "Hey, you need to transport this." But she fails to tell us that Ellie is immune until after Joel, Tess, and Ellie are both caught, and the I think Fireflies are checking to see if they've been infected or not, and it's not until like that later in that we learn that she's immune. So now Marlene's holding back on us for probably good reason, but it just I don't know. I don't know about you guys, but if you were smuggling something, I personally would want to know why we're smuggling them. Maybe if you're smuggling drugs, it's because you get paid or whatnot, but you don't really get much anything out of it. You just send Ellie on her way. Again, I have a memory of a goldfish, so they might have said why, and I just didn't pay attention or I completely forgot about it. But you just smuggle Ellie out of the city behind the walls, and you don't mention it otherwise, or you don't know otherwise. And second of all, Joel tells Ellie not to tell anyone of her immunity. Yet the first person he tells is Tommy, breaking his own rule. He doesn't tell Sam and Henry. He tells his own brother, who is still a bit pissed off at Joel for what they went through. Don't remember what they went through. Oh yeah, they had a disagreement over Fireflies. Tommy said they're good. Joel says they're best. So they went their separate ways. It was done. So you're telling me that after the whole thing between you and Tommy, you then just whenever you first meet them again, your first choice is to tell Tommy that Ellie's immune. It just doesn't make sense. That was the one thing that bothered me was Joel tells Ellie not to tell anyone, but then he goes and tells someone else. But I mean, I don't know. It seems weird that if you make a rule that you should also follow it also. But if you end up going off and breaking it, then I feel like Ellie should also. Which she does, but only after the prologue of the second one. But it just seems weird to me that I don't know. Joel had like all these sets of rules and such, and what really bothered me was, even though I've grown emotionally attached to Ellie in the second one, which kind of seeped over into the first one, I still hate Bill. I hated him the first time, and I hated him now. I still hate him now, although he does have like that. He does give you a shotgun and like the spike mines or the spike grenades or what? Yeah, I guess the mines. Which was pretty useful in the hospitals trying to save Ellie from making the cure and whatnot. But I don't know. Something like that just seemed a bit much. I feel like Bill was kind of unnecessary. He was more of like a throwaway character. And that's something I don't like. I don't like characters being made just to be thrown away. I feel like there were a few people, especially in I think was it Fallout 4? I think Fallout 4 has something similar like that too. Maybe not. But I dislike games like that where a character is made just to be thrown away. Hence throwaway character. But that that added nothing to it. Yes, they got a car. Ellie got comic books and a porno mag, but but that didn't really add significance to the game at all. Maybe the comic book, because Ellie kept saying endure and survive, but other than that, didn't really add much. Yes, you got a shotgun and spike mines, but at what fucking cost? Just to throw a character away? And there had to have been I feel like someone like Manny was also a throwaway in the second one, but I don't know. It doesn't I don't lose respect for the game if they use throwaway characters, because you gotta do what you gotta do. Just personally, I hate throwaway characters because they're made whether they add significance or not to the game doesn't really matter. If someone is made and or is either dead or well, given certain circumstances, trying to think. I don't want. I just thought of one other game, but never mind. But whether they add no significance to the game whatsoever. Well, okay. I guess Bill's Quest did have something where you learn about bloaters, but that seems a bit weird to me. That you would introduce a character to go someplace just to introduce a new enemy. Because it never happened. Well, it happened in the second one, but it only appeared once. It only appeared once, but it wasn't a throwaway character. It was just you playing as someone, and they just randomly appear. But I don't know. Having someone like Bill, I guess long story short, fuck Bill. He is a bit paranoid, which I can respect because I'm very paranoid myself. But I don't know. There was a lot of stuff I wanted to talk about, but my memory's a fucking goldfish. Oh yeah. Joel talked about how whenever Ellie ran off on Joel, Tommy, and Maria, or the hydro plant, Joel said that they'll be going their separate way, that Joel and Ellie will be going their separate ways, but then they immediately travel together, so basically contradicting what he said at the ranch whenever him and Tommy found Ellie. He has contradicted himself a lot in this, which again doesn't really bother me. I just find it to be a bit weird. But then, like, all of a sudden, I understand that it's like embracing your past and whatnot. But whenever Ellie talks about Sarah, Joel's like, "Don't you fucking dare!" And then immediately afterwards starts talking about Sarah, not just sitting down and be like, "Hey, I'm sorry for berating you. It's a very serious topic." Now that might have happened, but it just seems a bit weird because we missed out on a lot of stuff. We missed out on Joel apologizing to Ellie for what happened and whatnot. I think that would have been important. So overall, really good game. It did really. After playing the second one, it did really change my mind on what I thought about it. It just kind of added a new perspective to it. I still think that whole Abby shit was very unnecessary in the second one, but I guess you can't really. They had to make it work somehow. because you should have just gone to backstory and then just have what happened in the prologue happen, and then Ellie chase after Abby. But you don't need to have an explanation as to how we got into that situation. I guess I might as well title this video Last of Us review plus an update on Last of Us 2. No, I won't do that because whatever. But thinking back at it, I don't know, something in the way Joel kills Marlene at the end was fucking amazing. But it never really occurred to me that at the end of it, they were actually headed to Jackson. they might have, again, they might have said it, but they probably missed down on it. But all we know was that Joel lied to Ellie, which was the biggest problem. Which was the biggest thing that bothered me, was that Joel would lie to Ellie because of the fact that she may not have been happy about it. But the thing that pissed her off the most was the fact that he hid it from her. Which was just dumb. First of all, Joel went from not liking her to all of a sudden treating her like a daughter, which I will give him credit for. It is an amazing character arc thing, but I don't know. But willing to risk your life for someone that you hardly know, because at least from what we know, there is a lot of stuff that Joel doesn't know about Ellie. But again, within those cutscenes, there was nothing we learned. I'm not talking about Left Behind, that little side thing, because it adds nothing to the story. Ellie explains what happened at the end of a game, like about me getting bit. My friend Riley and I were just fucking around when Riley and I both got bit. She was the one to have died, and I feel like the Left Behind thing was completely unnecessary, because it didn't add anything. You just got to play as Ellie. And it may have, again, it's been a while since I played it, but this is supposed to be shorter than it probably was, but it's so hot in here I can barely focus. And I would put the fan on, but that would just ruin everything. So yeah, this was probably unnecessarily long. I understand that, and I'm probably all over the place with this. Long story short, good game. Fuck Abby still. I don't know why people hate The Last of Us 2. I'm too scared to watch videos because it'll bother me. Because I have a problem. I do have respect for Ellie a lot more now since I've played it, because she's been through a lot of shit. Oh, one more thing I want to touch on. What the fuck was up with Henry and Sam? That was one thing that confused me, because you never work with anyone else again after that. Well, unless you consider David, but I don't, because that was just like a one level thing. But you travel with them a lot more. You go through all of this shit, and it just, again, more throwaway characters. They added a character that added almost nothing to the story. Did they? I don't personally. I don't think they did, but that just adds like 2 throwaway characters, because Sam gets infected, gets hostile towards Joel, and whatnot, and just I do not like them. I did not like them at all. Maybe at first I did, but then after a while, after playing the game, I was like, yeah, no, I don't like him. I will give them credit that they were a big help, but I don't know. It was some like unnecessary shit that was added to it just to have them there. But you do get to work like a fully functioning sniper rifle, not like a hunting rifle with the scope. A full blown fucking like 50 cal, a bare 50 cal sniper rifle, I think. I'm not a gun person. So that was the only good one that came out of that Henry and Sam debacle or group, because even, and keep in mind, I was playing on easy this time around, kind of like what I'm doing with The Last of Us 2. Which, speaking of which, I started replaying The Last of Us 2, and it said New Game Plus. I haven't seen that anywhere on The Last of Us 1, but Last of Us 2, it has New Game Plus, which makes it a bit more difficult than its predecessor of just regular. Which, to be fair though, in a sense, you do get the guns that you had previously when finishing the game in Seattle, so I guess that kind of helps. But are you seriously going to start with silent submachine gun in Seattle that you don't get to like the epilogue? That just doesn't make sense. Like, well, I understand where they're coming from and why it would be a bit harder, I thought light would be something more, or plus would be something more. But I'm replaying the game again on light, which now I think about it, I really should have done light plus, because I really want that submachine gun again, and I think it's too late. I don't know. If it is, oh well, I don't know what to fucking do about it. But what I found to be funny was after I played this the second part, I hated Abby even more. It's like anything she did, like her shoulder got broken. I'm like, good, you fucking deserved it. It was. Oh, I take this game way too seriously. I take video games way too seriously. Anyway, I'm gonna end this here before I make it unnecessarily like an hour long. Even though it's almost that way. So yeah, long story short, enjoy Last of Us 2. Fuck the 3 throwaways. Huge respect for Ellie. Still feel the same about Joel. And fuck Maria. No. Anyway, Loser Maniac out. Jeez.